Values. I'm Robert.
And I'm Christopher. On today's program, we will be talking to you about core values, iPhones versus Samsung, eligibility, 2 sport athletes, and culture. First, let's go to Cadence with a report on the school's core values.
The core values of PRHS include character, citizenship, and community. They are important to the structure here at Poland Regional High School.
To me, the core values help to shape the students of PRHS to become better citizens when they leave here.
They give us that base and that common language that we all use, that base for all of the things that we do and the focus that we have for the school.
The core values for me, they mean that how you should kind of function in our society here at Poland Regional High School.
So the core values mean to me a way that people can see themselves as a role model. I think if you follow character, citizenship, and community, people look at you as someone who's doing the right things and truly understands how to be the best person that you can be.
So the pros that I've seen have been mostly in the roundtable curriculum and some in the seminar curriculum and some of the special ed programs, where it's teaching students how to be better citizens, how to take more responsibility for themselves, how to participate in their community.
I think the students know the core values when they are using them in their conferences and with their portfolios.
So I think it goes 2 ways. There are 2 groups of people I think that could fall in these categories. There's groups of people that are the role models that really see themselves following the core values at the high school, and then you have sets of students that don't necessarily believe the core values are going to help them be a better student, and I think some students truly might not care about the core values and they're just here to get their work done and get out of school.
Core values are probably an everyday thing. It's not, you don't kind of say to yourself, hey, on Tuesday I'm going to do the core values. It's an everyday thing. So if I talk to a student about core values, it's traditionally when I see something, they might need one of the 3 in their life.
I hope that they continue on and maybe adjust with the changing times, that community might mean something different in the future, and so could character. As people grow, their characters change. As society changes, their characters change too.
My fear is that students understand the core values after they graduate high school and they don't see the importance of how they affect them in high school. So my fear is they will continue to see the importance of them once they graduate, but when they're in high school, they don't see the importance of it.
I think our honor code has to become a little bit more in the forefront of how our kids behave. I think as of right now, we kind of accept everybody for who they are, but we don't look at them and say, hey, these are our honor code items. If I wasn't to change anything, I'd say that our honor code would become more of what we do, and possibly part of the how grade.
As you can see, the core values mean a lot to the students and the staff here at PRHS. I am Cadence reporting for WPRH.
Thanks, Cadence. It's good that our school emphasizes these core values.
Now let's take a look at cell phone preferences. Here's Stephen with more.
At Poland Regional High School, many teachers and students use Apple or Samsung phones for work, play, and many other things.
So I have an iPhone. Things I like are probably that it is easy to use. It's hard to break things. You can't move too much stuff around. There's pretty ample storage. It's nice that it can interface with my school computer. And we also use the calendar function to keep a kind of family calendar with my wife.
It's not really a great phone. It's really slow and sometimes it'll turn off when it wants to. And some chargers, if you start charging it, it'll actually take the battery out of the phone and put it in the charger somehow, so your phone dies. And the only thing I like about it is that the glass doesn't take long to break. I've only cracked the glass like 3 times, but I've thrown it a bunch.
Yeah, it's like very compact, it's like thin, lightweight, but also it's like really quick. Cause like sometimes the Samsung's like really slow when like you're swiping by stuff, it's really annoying.
Just students and teachers have reasons to get a certain type of phone.
So and my family all has Samsung, so we kind of just, I got my mom's old phone, but I'm hoping to get an iPhone because I don't really like Samsung. So yeah.
I guess because of like the hype, because like you want it to kind of like fit into society, I guess. I don't know. That's what I feel. I just guess like I'm biased towards it just because I've like always used Apple and like I haven't really used Samsung that much, so you are, I guess, because Samsung is like a little bit cheaper, but you're getting a less quality product.
I think build quality is important. I think Apple has put a lot of effort into making things that don't break, with the exception of their charging cords, which every single one I've ever owned has fallen apart.
WPRH, students and teachers are influenced by price and what phone they get.
Like some of the prices are really steep, like the newer ones, which like I personally don't get like the iPhone X or anything. Like I'll get like the 7 or 6, but because it's cheaper. So like it depends like how high end you are, I guess.
I think it's pretty insane how expensive they are, but phones now are doing a lot more, and like they're just always upgrading to something better that we've never seen.
So prices are high. They're, you know, when you're looking at $1,000 or $700, whatever it is for a new phone, that's crazy. People end up financing them. You know, they get a loan for them. Basically, they pay payments on them. They end up paying a lot on them. But I mean, I know it costs money to make something. I get that. There are a lot of, you know, pieces that are expensive to produce, but clearly they're making their money. If you look at Apple's stock prices.
WPRH, students and teachers have certain preferences over phone brands.
I think Apple's better because it's just more professional, I think. Samsung's kind of like a crappy version of a DS, kind of.
I think they're like a Dollar Tree brand of like Apple. Like they like tried to piggyback on them, but it didn't really work out. So like that's why I think Samsung isn't like the greatest.
I also like that the apps that are kind of vetted through Apple, and meaning they're not full of viruses. So that's a pretty safe thing to use. You don't have to worry too much about it getting destroyed by software.
At Poland Regional High School, many teachers and students use Apple and Samsung phones to play, to waste time, and sometimes for work.
Thanks, Steven. You know, I prefer my Android Moto G6 instead, but iPhone and Samsung are good phones too.
Another thing that is good at our school is the eligibility policy. It also really helps athletes stay up on their schoolwork. Here's Sophia with more.
Here at PRHS, we have an eligibility policy that determines whether or not students can participate in co-curricular activities.
For us at Poland Regional, the rules are that you have to be passing roundtable, and you have to be passing 6 classes.
It gives a motive to some students, but at the same time I feel like it may be just extra unneeded pressure for some students that feel like just passing the class is enough already.
Just focusing on the habits at work to determine eligibility is a good idea, and it's kind of consistent through all the classes too, so it will not be a surprise for a student if they become ineligible.
I think the house system that we have now instead of grades is problematic because there are kids that are not necessarily passing academically, but they're passing a How grade.
As a school, we believe that it's a privilege to participate in co-curricular activities.
I think that the student should have to earn the right to play sports by meeting the rules and expectations that the school has established so far and that they are aware of ahead of time.
As you didn't want to do your schoolwork, so why would you be able to play out here? So
sports is everything for them. They love it, they want to do it. But they've got to understand that it's not a right, it's a privilege, and there are requirements, there are expectations for that, and if you're not meeting it, things can be taken away very easily.
We feel as though having an eligibility policy motivates students to do better.
Be with the teammates, play with teammates. Like if you're not doing your homework, you're not helping your team.
Sports play a huge role in motivating them the extra bit, just knowing that you want to be able to play, you want to be able to start. And a lot of times on my team, like I just really hear people saying, I need to do this because I need to play this sport. Like
that it's not just you and it's not an individual sport, that it's a team sport. And if you're missing out on something or you're lacking it, it does affect the team and it affects everybody else around it. So it's not just you that's impacting.
I'm Sophia Nottingham reporting for WPRH.
Eligibility is important for athletes, and another concern is whether athletes should be allowed to participate in multiple sports in one season.
A big controversy at Poland Regional High School has been if a student athlete can play 2 sports in one season.
Student athletes playing 2 sports in one season, I don't particularly agree with it. I believe detrimental to the teams because that athlete isn't at all the practices. He or she has to split the practices between 2 teams and does not create the team cohesiveness that I think is needed in high school sports.
I think it can be a challenge. The MPA, the Maine Principals Association, allows it to happen, but I think that one of the reasons why they allow it is because there are some schools that are much smaller than we are that don't have students to fill all of their teams.
Well, I think both teams would kind of lose something from one player switching to another sport because our school doesn't have too many people that we can have like multiple teams. So I think it could put a disadvantage on one team, but they could probably get through it without making a big deal.
The pros is definitely the student gets to see 2 different sports, time management if he or she can do that, time management with classes, time management with homework, time management with practices would be huge. The cons would be if it gets overwhelming and it's too deep in the season, then what's that student to do when he starts falling behind or she starts falling behind on homework, or they get hurt, things like that are definitely cons for that.
So I think, unfortunately in life, sometimes we get forced into making decisions about what we want to do. It's hard to overcommit yourself into multiple places. It actually has happened here. We've had students participate in multiple sports, which has kind of led me to where I'm at now with my thoughts about it. I certainly don't want to deny opportunities for kids. However, it really interrupts your team dynamics. So I would say that if we had a student athlete that was compelled to do 2 sports, the schedule is the schedule. Make it work. And quite oftentimes it doesn't. I think we oftentimes think about the opportunities that we provide for student athletes and would think that it would be terrible to deny the opportunity of a student who, let's just say, is on the softball team and is a state champion caliber hurdler. They would have to go to the meets on Fridays because that's when the league meets are, which means that they're going to miss a game. And most coaches say you miss a game, you sit a game. It almost seems like you're dividing your efforts in terms of trying to be good at something. Pick something. You just can't spread yourself too thin. I think that we use things when we talk about teams like family, all in, one goal, one team, those types of slogans that we have tended to adopt for teams. And it's hard to say that I'm all in if I miss 2 games a week. When you think about those things, it does affect people. I think that there are sacrifices and experiences throughout the season that teammates experience. When one of your teammates misses half of those or a third of those, it kind of feels a little bit different. So I do think it affects the team psyche.
Well, I think if people switch teams, it could create a trend where if one player doesn't like how something's happened, they could just switch to a different sport, which I guess is sort of a good thing because sports should be fun for everyone. If you're not having fun, that's not good. The difference between the 2 sports, because soccer isn't really a contact sport, and also if you go from football to soccer, I think you might tend to be more aggressive, and that could get you kicked out of games or give you a yellow card or something like that.
So at Poland Regional High School, you can play 2 sports in one season, but it's very hard and doesn't happen a lot. I'm Noah Bratton reporting for WPRH.
I think if you could keep up on your schoolwork, people should be able to play 2 sports. What do you think, Chris?
I think it's great, but sports aren't my thing. I prefer to travel, and here's a report Robert did on just that.
Many people at Poland Regional High School have experienced different cultures or lived in other cultures or countries before.
Yes, I travel to Europe with students every April vacation. I'll pick a place I've been to a few times, Italy. So Italy is one of my favorite places to go. It's one of the reasons why I go back so many times. I've been probably 8 times now to Italy. And whenever I go, it's always great. I love it. It has art, it has history. There are some obvious differences, which would be between the United States and Italy. Some of the obvious ones would be language. Right here we say hello, there you say buongiorno. So the language is different. Even though we have like the same foods maybe, like pizza, they make it very differently than we do. Right? It's not the same. There are some differences that are just like cultural differences. For example, here in the United States, Americans like our personal space, right? If someone gets too close to us, it makes us uncomfortable. Whereas in Italy, if you're talking with someone or standing next to somebody, it's not uncommon for them to be right, very close, just a few inches away, having that conversation. When you're standing in line, which they would call the queue, if you're standing in the queue in line, let's say waiting to order a coffee or whatnot, you got to stay really close to the person in front of you. Otherwise, they assume that you're not ready to order, and they're not being rude about it, or whatever. But they'll just come in from the side and they'll just step in and step right in front of you. Because in their custom, if I'm ready to order, I'm right behind the person. Whereas in this country, go to the gas station or McDonald's, the person in line might be 3 feet behind the person in front of them. But if you did that there, that three feet of space would get filled up by people coming in from the side, assuming you're not ready to order. Right. So there's some of those kind of things that you don't really know about, you don't really read about, you have to experience them. So you go there and they're like, oh, okay, don't do that again.
Yes, at least
or I'll be standing in line forever.
I was going to say, I was thinking of going there, and if I didn't know that would have been weird, awkward.
Right. Because you might get offended, you might get upset, like thinking, what, you're cutting line, but for them, that's not what they consider it.
So if I was to advise you guys to get over to Ireland and check it out, I would suggest you read a little bit about the country before you head out. And because the history is huge, and if you're into anything in relation to castles and things of that nature, if you're kind of excited about that type of thing, do a little bit of research prior to heading over. And there's no specific place that you would have to go to see that, which is the interesting thing about Ireland. You could just be driving through the countryside and you're gonna be like, oh, look at that, there's a castle, just sitting there in ruins, which is kind of interesting. So I would advise people to get off the beaten path and investigate the country at their own speed. Check out, as I said before, a couple of cities are worth checking out. Galway is a magnificent place to check out. It's a very artistic, very vibrant city. Dublin, of course, has a massive medieval history to it and Viking history. It was pretty much established as a Viking city. So there's a huge amount of museums and things to check out while you're over there.
Spain is a place that speaks to my soul. I love it there. I am considering retiring there. It's a wonderful country, and it's a lot. It has one similarity to the United States in that it is incredibly varied. North is not like the South, is not like the Central, is not like the Northwest, is not like the Northeast. It's a very varied country depending on where you go. I think as far as Spain goes, it's the pace.
Right.
You cannot hurry in Spain, they will not let you. Americans we're on a schedule. Not in Spain. I once talked to a teacher there and asked me how long we had for lunch when we were in school. And I said 25 minutes. And he said, that's barbaric. I would never work for a place that had less than an hour and a half. I said, well, then you're not going to be working in the United States because that's the way it is. But the pace of life is much slower. They enjoy it more. It's great.
Well, any travel experience even if it's not so much traveling, but reaching out into other cultures that are less familiar to you, I'm all for anything like that. So the Dominican Republic for me was because the opportunity arose. And I would have been just as glad to have visited any number of other cultures, but I, by opportunity, was able to spend some time in the Dominican Republic, and very thankful I was. I really appreciated the time there.
So the experiences that the people here experienced from different cultures have impacted Poland Regional in a very different way, and a good way too, because you need to experience those other cultures to make a general understanding of them. I'm Robert Noyes, reporting for WPRHS.
Thanks for that report.
That's it for our show. I'm Robert.
I'm Chris.